Last day. Where are you going?
This fancy
I'm gonna
book.
go. Yes. Yeah, but I'm gonna.
Oh my gosh.
I always have the need to like touch it so I can.
Wow.
That's okay. Still read this week.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, thank you. Wow.
It was like, oh my gosh.
No, totally.
Very nice.
I'm gonna complete my sale tomorrow. We're closing tomorrow. The streets. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Expected. I've already been to and my end goal is to end up with. I think more adventurous is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so awesome.
Thank Excited. I'm gonna be posting all over Facebook, and
Okay.
all over TikTok.
Hey, we're here.
And,
Just trying to figure out this.
Zoom. Nice. Kent says hi. Yeah, you don't know who Kent is?
Oh, Kent,
Kent.
yes. So you said Rider? Like, you know, the Knight Rider? Where's
Okay,
this?
of course, yeah.
Usually Kristen pops in and helps me. Oh, I bet we're gonna let Connor in.
You're like.
I wonder what happened to my screen.
Is the internet slow?
I don't know.
It's like,
Hey, good morning, Regina.
Hey Connor, how are you?
Doing good.
We really what happened to it? Yes. Do you see the PowerPoint screen, Connor?
Yeah, I
I'm doing
can
it right.
see.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So how okay. We're getting to close workshop. So this is kind of the part where is we can kind of forget some things because we use a TC. So making sure that we're covering these steps and stuff like that will help all of us. So scan in so that we know you're here. You need to scan in, buddy.
is there like a skin?
Yeah, scan in. Hardly. Okay. Can you see? Oh, you're on your screen.
I can
All right, so we're gonna take action. So our Before we jump into everything, we're gonna take action and take on the following slide. Please join me for Selling Your Home for More seminar on June 6th. A panel of experts successfully navigate the home selling process. Let me know if you can attend. Pick 5 people and text that out on Facebook. Make sure that you never know who's gonna be thinking. Make sure that you're using that as, some value add when you're doing your open houses to sell or thinking about selling, to come join your so you did. I'll be right back. You guys are doing your text messages. Good morning,
So what?
you gotta get your we got 2 people in the waiting room. Callie and all right. So questions in regards to the sales. So how many days do you have to deliver the earnest money?
Isn't it 3 days? And that 3 days starts once both parties have signed the contract, or at the day after both parties have signed.
So, yeah, so 3 calendar days after everything is signed. So if it got signed today, tomorrow. And then to be mindful, if you're going into a week, you can extend that out. So if you're writing a contract today, companies are closed on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So you may want, and they can do it electronically, but not all can. So I wrote an offer on a house in Ottawa to deliver the earnest money because they didn't have the electronic way to do it. In mind when you're writing your contract. By when does the buyer have to have close? So even though you have an approval, when you write the offer, you still have some things that the buyer or the underwriter might find in the contract that need to be checked off before they get the official clear to close approval. Does anyone know?
Is it 45 days?
So the language of the contract says 45 days or 5 days prior to closing. So you should be expecting clear to close 5 days. You should expect to have your final HUD statement, 3 days. Does the seller have to notify the buyer if the house is damaged in a fire? I would say immediately.
I think
Okay.
look at his next 7 days.
Yeah, I would say immediately. Why am I not scrolling down? So immediately on that. So let's start looking at the contract to close checklist. This is your to-do list to meet and all people involved. So there's several to-dos, adds on top of each other, you know, to get to the final closing day. So your contract acceptance date on your calendar, your earnings, you know, your inspection period 10 days by default unless you negotiate different. You have an insurability check, so during the inspection period, making sure any renegotiations after those items, you have a 5-day period. You have your appraisal period, and then you have your loan approval period. Questions? You're in now. Okay. Is the first thing a buyer needs?
Pre-approval.
What do buyers need to know to do? What do you need to do? No. So some of the things that you want to go, you know, when do they need? So what's an acceptable close date? Making sure they have money for their enough funds in their account to do inspections. Making sure those things are done, that they have the money in their account to pay for their appraisal directly. That's paid right around $600. So you're looking at 1% for earn, $500 to $1,000 for home inspections, depending on what they do, and appraisal. So you're wanting to make sure that your buyers have at least whatever their down payment money is in their account as they the home are making offers. Those are some things that they need to be prepared to pay, and then that will help you in regards to if they don't have those items, and would need to negotiate those costs for them. And then what are some things that you need to know and that's going to be signing for the contract to go over their expectations of how to sign approval letter. You need to know who they're working with in their regards to their financing. You need to know your time frame if you don't find it in that time frame. What are some other things you might need to know if you're working with a buyer?
What are their prices?
Yep, yep.
Or first one.
Yep, their budget, what their monthly payment looks like. Those are important. Okay, what am I doing at each point of the bulletproof that the buyer up for a successful closing? So first thing my buyers need, right? So sitting down and having that buyer's consultation, going in regards to, you know, how many rooms they need, where do they want to live, walkability to schools is important. That information, they setting up expectations with your buyers so they know about appraisal waiver gaps as in its present condition, inspection notice, and what's the other appraisal and the escalation. So that when they're making their offers, and if you're in a multiple offer situation, the tools if needed, so that they're comfortable knowing what those are. Make sure that you're setting up when you start up in command as a contact. Make sure you're starting your to dot loop. Reaching out to the lender to introduce yourself and have a conversation because you guys will be working. Make sure move out, like the move-in process, right? That sometimes that they don't always get as they sign. It kind of depends on how the offer's written. So backing up their moving truck. Make sure you understand the title commitment. Make sure you understand you know, setting up your inspection items, understanding how to do a resolution. That might help make things bulletproof to the transaction. That will set you.
Good communication.
Yeah, good. Yeah, understanding how your buyer can be more responsive if you call them, if you text message them, or email. And they don't ever check their emails, that's probably not going to get you through a smooth transaction. So make sure communication styles so they understand vice versa how you okay. So here's the buyer's contract. So send a copy, so you're under contract. Send a copy of the fully signed executed contract to your lender to send a copy to the title company. It's the buyer's choice. You know, and then, you know, if based off of, you know, like our office, it's more convenient. And Platinum does a great job. So then you're gonna there's agents that do this for their clients because one, it helps manage not calling you and saying, hey, I booked a inspection and you have a closing that day. So you want to make sure how inspections that it helps align with your calendar because you need to be present during those inspections. you need to deliver the earnest money to the sellers. Verify if they're gonna be paying electronically or dropping the payment off. Making sure opportunity is updated when offer is entered and is filled out. Don't forget to add the bonus of the $495. Letter and you need help, make sure that you're reaching out to your coach and letting us help you through those. Home warranty, if there's one that is negotiated into the, make sure that if you're on the buy side that you're choosing that you do that on your side because you don't want to share your, if they order it, then they'll need all your buyer's information. So, and plus most home warranties will notify you when your buyer uses the program. So it's a good extra touch. The transaction's closed. Done, you're going to review the inspection report with a buyer. You're going to fill out any notice. So the inspection notice is what you send out to the what your intentions are. So if you did like a box 1, 2, or 3, did the inspections and you're moving forward in its present condition, or whatever the case may be. Or if you didn't do a box 1, 2, or inspection period, you're notifying them that, hey, you're taking the property in its present condition. Are to renegotiate. And then if your intentions are to filling out an unacceptable condition, and then you're going to send all those documents to the other agent within the inspection period. The one and done. You don't do a resolution and then be like, oh yeah, add it. So make sure that you've done all of your inspections. You know what your radon come back in. You've gotten the home house inspection and you've thoroughly gone through all of fireplace inspection or any of that stuff, pool inspection. You have all resolution. And then the seller has that to renegotiate with the buyer in regards to moving forward with the transaction. And title company about progress. Don't wait till the last week. Buyers having financial issues and may or may not be able to get for you to swing a different path. Sometimes you can still get things to closing if it's not too bad. Okay. After resolution is sent, address renegotiate price or closing costs in lieu of repair. Title in your lender with these new terms because that affects the HUD or Alta closing numbers. If you're doing repairs, scheduling those, making sure that when anything is done, if it's on your side and you've scheduled it, that you're there present. Even if there's like a contract box on the house, anytime we are to be present with our buyer. Your lender's appraisal when it comes in. And then also having like we're in the house when you make the offer. We're in the, and then after we do the home inspection, we generally don't go back into our final walkthrough. Because if you don't set expectations on the time that the contract, the buyer's allowed to go in, you're going to have buyers who are like, oh, I want to go measure bring my parents by to see the house, or my friends in the neighborhood, could we go look at the house, right? Are preparing to move, so if it's a property that's lived in, being disrupted every time, you don't want your buyers like trying to access the property without you. The times that we have to be in the home, right? So during your home inspection, to see the home, this is a great time to invite them in. Just make sure they're not intrusive of the home inspection, because this is a great time if you think you're going to be ordering furniture. Please don't buy it before closing, but if you want to measure for your couch or anything like that, that we're doing it during that home inspection period. So making sure that you're and then we may go back items, we may go back to verify those are done, 7 days prior to I always say the seller to have everything done within a week of closing, all receipts and warranties for the work to be provided in writing, inspection, and then we would still have our final walkthrough. So that's what just so they know that when we go and inspect for our inspection items, we still want to do our final walkthrough as close to closing as possible, because that the AC is still there, that there wasn't any, like if you were closing last week, that none of the house by the storm, so you want to make sure that you probably within 24 hours of closing. So you don't want to go too far. So then you're verifying appraisal result. Appraisal back, and it'll be at value with no exceptions. Government back loan, it may come back at or put in a handrail or something like that. So you want to always make sure that you're not always looking at any exceptions that the appraiser will need. Then there's usually a re-inspection fee that's involved in the appraiser, and take pictures of the items that he flagged that need, or she flagged for closing. A date with your closing time with your title company and the buyer, or DA, which is your commission letter to title, to make sure that the opportunity is complete. You'll receive emails through command that things are in compliance. Then going to be scheduling your final walkthrough to make sure the house is acceptable and all making sure that appliances that were expected to stay in the home are. You're going to review the ALTA statement, make sure that purchase price, the earnest money, the down payment, the closing costs, make sure your commitment 95 feet to KW is on there. Once you let title know that you've approved it, you closing gift for your buyer immediately after closing. Like if you got them a home warranty, you may give them the rekeying of their lock. You could do a house cleaning, when they move in. You could like I like to do a basket of like disposable things, so plastic silverware, toilet paper, some cleaning products, some trash sacks and stuff like that. So they have everything that they need at their new home. So that's a lot of times what I'll do for my closing gift. But the seller, you may do a painting of their house if they're attached to it. So, you know, whatever you think is appropriate for that. Company to make sure everything's funded correctly. And everything's, you know, you should get it. And that is generally when the buyer can access the property. Wise negotiated differently in the contract. The buyer after it's funded. So don't be giving your keys to your buyers at the walk. If they enter that property before they're allowed to per the contract in the contract. So and then you should get on your way to your final steps of closing your home. So sending out to your buyers when they go under contract on kind of what to process. Can give them something to refer back to. And also, like, you know, like when you're like, hey, remember when I sent you this email? Remember when we spoke about get involved? You have something to reference back to. Remember when we went over this? About that. Because a lot of times people get excited about things like that. You can refer them back to, yeah, remember when we had this conversation about the appraisal fee, and you said you had that. So now we're on to the seller's timeline. Before we move on, that you guys have about buyers that you, or, you know, did you do it? And there was maybe some things that you wish you would have known, or any transaction a little bit smoother for you. Remember that setting expectations with your buyers is critical when going under contract. Using your power tools to help cover all of the items that you need to make sure the process for yourself and your buyers. So now we're going to dig into the seller's timeline. This list is more about deadlines and the list of steps. All of the documents, communication points, and people involved. As you look at areas to add to the timeline are what parties' responsible tasks are. What are some things that you need? What are first? Yeah, you know, are they purchasing another property? Go under contract? Are they going to have living situation, or do they need to go out and find something to buy? Do they have to house? You get a duplicate key from them if you're listing the box, making sure that they understand the seriousness of the and that they're taking time to properly fill that out and not rushing through it. Make maintenance items that they've done to the property, or any warranties that they can pass on, or any booklet. These are always help provide reassurance to the buyer about the property. One of the things that we did forget on the buyer side is making sure that your buyers are switching over to utilities. Right, so utilities should stay on through the day of closing, and then making sure that you're are getting utilities set up in their name. They have to physically go in. I think Jackson County, you have to physically go into the water department. So prepare for any deposits they might have to make. Making sure your sellers understand the condition as it was when it was shown. Understand that it should be leaving the home in move out condition. So that means they need to leave it clean, wipe down the countertops, prepare the home like they would from a landlord. So what are some that you need to know? If there's an HOA, you might need to, if there's any covenant restrictions in regards to pets, investment. You're listing a condo, can the property be rented? Because you're going to get a lot of questions, buyers agents in regards to these items. So making sure that you know these things. Like I has a vacant property next to it, so knowing what's going on. Whenever somebody sets up a showing, I reach out to them and let them know that they're renovating those two properties. So it's not going to look like that for long. And it's kind of a good time to get in because the property and their values will go up. Doing a pre-inspection, the importance of pre-inspection. The kind of breaking up with their home items in their home, making sure that they're packing and preparing to move. In 10 days, would they be ready to do that if that happened?
Hey, Regina, when's the most common time someone would do a pre-inspection? Is that real common, or is that like on a house that's older? And
I think it's a good idea. Because especially if you think it's a house that you're going to get multiple offers on, this gives the buyer a holistic view of the property. Foundation, it's not going to be a full pre-inspection. It's going to address the main mechanic. And it helps your seller control the cost of the repair. So if there were some, they could repair the items with their and having them already done and addressed, that it can be more beneficial for the seller. An investment property, and it's just kind of an cash investor buying, I probably wouldn't do one. But I think it's a good idea to do it. It helps one for you to price the property, right? And two, it helps any surprises, and that's the biggest thing that keeps deals, together. There's true transparency. And then if somebody's making an offer, offers they're writing $50,000 above list price, and then they get this inspection report. I don't really feel like I overpaid for this property. So you're getting offers that reflect. So I think it really kind of keeps perspective and alignment if you do that. But also it could go the other way, with the way the market is. Sections. So, I mean, if you don't have knowledge, you don't have knowledge. So, you got to look at both sides of the coin. So the seller's contract to close process. So get the title, let the title company know that you're listed. Do a preliminary title search. Make sure that there's no surprises. So if somebody they have child support or this is really important so that you understand, like, if have to be cleared up and making sure that there's enough money with the proceeds of the sale and the seller is aware of those items because that's going to affect their cash in their pocket. Update the status on the MLS. You're under contract now, you got an offer. So making sure that you're updating it to show for backup or pending, that you send the fully signed contract to the title when you listed, and that's on the MLS. Make sure your opportunity and that you've filled out your commission with the 495 and that you're doing launch referral. If you have any questions on how to do that, make sure you reach out to one of us. Get a receipt from the title company once the review with your client and address the terms that you may receive from the buying agent. Schedule the repairs. So make sure that you have a good vendor list that you can help somebody to paint or fix deck boards or work. So make sure that you're building up those contacts right now. Send out your receipts for your completed work. So, I love the fact I want to DIY it, but you really need to make sure that the work is being done by a professional. Receipts to back it. Check with the title company that you've got your title commitment. Verify appraisal is going to be done. So I just wrote an offer on a property. Had a conversation with me and I was like, what a great agent. When she lists the property, her number one appointment that she always makes. And so she always shows up at every appraisal for her seller. As comps that she pulled that reflect the and then she's always there to point out any of the upgrades or anything that the seller may have. So that's a great value add if that's something that you wanted to add to your seller. If that's something that you want to do, because I think that was the high value of what she brought to her sellers. The title company and the buyer's agent about their progress. So don't wait till the end to be communicating with the buyer's agent. You want to have a good relationship going through the transaction. In regards to where's the buyer at with their financing, how are things coming along on their end? It's about the move out. Are they prepared to move? Do they have their mover set? This time of the year, making sure that they know that they need to cut the grass. So if you get an offer, especially if you have a vacant property, doesn't mean you just get to stop cutting grass. You need into the property. The last thing they want to do is have to, so you want to make sure you're leaving the property in great condition with your seller, or you're going to be paying for yard work or something to be done at the end of the transaction. Verify the results of the appraisal to make sure there's no that needs to be done. If you're on the sell side, a lot of times the buying agent won't share information with appraised and there's no conditions. Your commission letter to the title company. And make sure that the buyers have scheduled a final walkthrough. For some reason during the final walkthrough, your sellers aren't 100%. You give the buyer's agent, you know, what to expect is moving. There's going to be boxes. Their movers don't come until make sure that all repairs on your resolution have been when the home is getting ready to be re-inspected for the final walkthrough. So how the buying agent's going to get the key for closing. And their utilities for the day or closing. Make sure that they update them with their new address so that they put their forwarding address in for their final bill. Have your seller leave any extra keys, garage door opener, keys, mailbox information, trash information, any special notes about the in the kitchen on the counter prior to closing. And then your sign picked up in your lock box. You get it updated. This is the one I always forget. It is from active to sold. I mean, pending to sold in the MLS. Closing gift. This could be a service before closing or a physical gift. Because depending on what their next situation is, you know, they may not want any move, you know. So, so that might be or a gift card or something like that. So it just kind of depends. So making sure that, hey, congratulations, we are sending them out the same email once you go under contract as you do for your buyers. The checklist for closing. What should they expect? You know, when be in the property with their buyers. So just give them this. So having this email with expectations will help move along the process. Okay, a transaction touches many hands before it's completed. It's not just handled by you and your client and the co-op agent. So now let's just kind of brainstorm and write down all the people that might be involved in a real estate transaction. So you have your lender, you have your inspector, you have your appraiser, you have repair companies, you have your title company, you have family members and friends. They're not necessarily involved, but they can be involved in your buyer's decisions. Who else could be involved? A notary, if you have to close remotely. Any property managers, if the property is being rented and there's tenants in it. You have your movers, contractors. Anyone else that you guys can think of? Home warranty companies. Okay, looking at your timeline, answer the following questions. Where is the deal at risk of falling apart? generally the three, so you go under contract, whenever you open up renegotiation. So during the home inspection, I mean, the inspection resolution period. And then again, if the appraisal comes back short, or but your inspection period is probably the number one highest probability of that, and then the second would be appraisal. So anytime negotiations are reopened or anything's asked for, so best practices of keeping a deal live is making sure that you're setting expectations up front. You know what I'm saying? If you are going to use it in its present condition, box 1, 2, or 3, that you are very transparent with your buyer and seller what these mean. And they're prepared for those. And they're not just using it as a manipulation tool, but really truly understand what they mean. Make sure that your sellers understand that, you know, who the appraiser is and why we have an appraiser, you know. So I understand that this is an aggressive market. We may get an offer over ask price. It would be great if it hits that number, but if it doesn't hit that number, you know, we have to figure out a way to keep the deal going forward. So are you still going to sell it if you don't get, you know, the price that they say, you know? So the appraisal waivers are an important negotiating factor if you think that the buyer's offered more than what the property's worth. Really kind of pushing, say, hey, we'd love to accept your offer, but we want this appraisal waiver to kind of cushion that. Making sure that you're pricing the home reasonably, so that it does appraise. Make sure that you maintain good relationships with your co-broker, because this is really important. I have a deal that is a Hail Mary deal, and when, because it closes tomorrow, I truly only got there because the listing agent was very level-headed, and he too, like myself, our goal was to get to closing. So I have the buyer gets pre-approved with a lender. We already have a long closing date. We don't make our closing date. So we ask for an extension. The sellers graciously give us an extension, but they ask for us to make the earnest money non-refundable. We agree to those terms. We don't hit our closing date the second time with the second lender. So the contract is now void. My buyer still wants the house. His lender's still willing to work on the loan. We go to a third lender. We meet the underwriting conditions of the second lender's denial based off of we're praying the whole entire time that the seller doesn't get an offer because they're back active. They don't get an offer. My buyer decides he doesn't want to release the earnest money, even though he agreed to, because he still wants the house. The sellers get mad at the buyer because they now aren't doing what they said they were going to do. And then finally we get clear to close, and we have to figure out how to get the buyers and sellers' emotions back in order to get an addendum to amend the closing date so that we can get to closing. So the selling agent was like, you know, the seller wants more financial concessions. You know, the buyer's like, well, you know, if their property was really worth $480 that we originally offered, they would have got another offer by now. So we really had to, you know, get everybody in the right mindset. And we're getting it to closing, but only because both of the agents worked very well, managing our clients' emotions and our own emotions that we're getting to this point. So after the transaction, I will really do something nice for the listing agent, because he was really top notch through this whole process. So I will hopefully the next time I write an offer on one of his listings, he'll see me as a person who gets to the closing table and doesn't give up, versus a problem agent, even though it wasn't the ideal transaction. So, so take advantage of all opportunities to earn, your unfair share. So this is in regards to profit share. So if you work with a great co-agent, see if you can get them into our office to meet with somebody. Make sure that you're talking to your clients about repeat business. If it's a great transactions, is there anybody that they could refer you to? Make sure you're getting client reviews. So during the time where people are very happy is usually when they find their property and go under contract. Make sure you're asking reviews at that time. They're excited when they're getting the keys. Hopefully it was a smooth transaction and they'll do a review at that time. But sometimes at that time, it could be so stressful that it's not as great. So really when you go under contract is the best time to get those client reviews. Make sure that you're staying in relationship with your clients so that you're continually top of mind, asking for referrals. Throughout the transaction, make sure that you're asking like, hey, how's this going? By the way, do you know anyone else that I could service to help them find a home? Because a lot of times when people are buying or selling a home, they're talking to their coworkers or families, which then stems conversations that somebody else might be thinking. So make sure that you're adding that into your systems and models, in regards to closing transactions, because that's when real estate gets fun, when you're not having to hunt for every transaction and things are kind of coming your way because you've done a great job. Okay, make sure you set them up on a smart plan. Once you get them under contract so that they're getting the newsletter, you've got them on a quarterly call plan so that you're giving them a call, checking in with them 4 times a year, and create these smart plans to help you with your follow-up business. And then get back at it. You've always got to be having something in the pipeline. So make sure that you're always doing your daily success things. You're having your 10 conversations, you're adding to your database, you're writing notes, you're engaging with people on social media, because you really want to make sure that you always have something in your pipeline, because the idea is to keep a consistent business, so you don't have to worry about when your next paycheck's coming every single time. Any questions about the buying and selling process in regards to under contract to close?
Yeah, Regina, how common is it for the listing agent to attend the inspections?
Listing agents normally do not, unless it's a pre-inspection. Like if you're doing it because you're doing it on the sell side, yes. But generally, when you're doing it on the buy side, that's your buyer's opportunity to really discuss anything about the home. So generally, it should be your buyer, you, and the inspector there at the home. So, because the buyers hired the inspector to work for them, so you don't really want the listing agent or the seller to be manipulating that conversation or anything like that. So it truly is their time at the home. So if you're on the sell side, you need to let your sellers know, like typically, you'll need to find somewhere to go for 2 to 4 hours. And this might where you do supplies and delight, right? So you may, at this point in the transaction, give your client a gift card to go have dinner during this time, or go have lunch. I know it's an inconvenience for you to be on your home, but at this point of the transaction, here's $25, $50 for you to go out and enjoy a meal with your family, during this time or whatever. So you could do a surprise and delight around that time if you wanted to. And then that's just like the first piece of leverage that you'll leverage out. So once you get where you're consistently closing, 1 to 2 transactions a month, then this is where you're gonna find your first piece of leverage. So getting a transaction coordinator from contract to close will take off a lot of weight in your business, and will kind of help you with everything, and they'll make sure that you get paid on time and stuff like that, because they're always working behind the scenes while you're out showing properties and stuff like that to address some of these things. And so this will be your first piece of leverage that you add into your business as you start to grow. So, and that's the first piece you should add before you add another agent or anything to your team. So, any other questions? So I would say take time. So for my team and myself, we are going to dissect the contract and really understand what the contract says. That's our goal for this upcoming month, is to really read it verbatim, word for word. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of agents don't do that. Probably, which stems a lot of the lawsuit stuff, is not understanding what you're representing or you're presenting to your clients. So if you haven't gone to contracts class, or it's been a while since you've gone, make sure you plug into that as many times as possible with Linda. Make sure you're taking time yourself to read the documents and understand what those documents say. If you have any questions when you're reading them, reach out to Linda or one of your coaches to create clarity about what the contracts say, especially with your buyer's agency contract. As we go into this new season, making sure that you really understand how to present that, because you're going to need that signed before you can actually physically go out to your properties with the buyer. So make sure that you really understand all that stuff really well. So, and that's what we have for today. Anything else from anybody? All right. Well, it was good chat with you guys. Hope you got some value from today's session. Happy Memorial Day weekend. If anybody's lonely on Saturday and they want to stop by my house, I'm having a graduation party with lots of good food. So you guys are all welcome to come by. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good Memorial weekend.
You too. Thank you. Bye.